the accusation that I, Allie Beth Stuckey, am a feminist is laughable. It almost doesn't dignify a response.
Sometimes things really do hurt your feelings. And sometimes things really weigh you down and they discourage your heart. And that's what I'm feeling this morning.
That was one of the Blaze TV's more prominent female hosts, Allie Beth Stuckey, who became embroiled in controversy over comments that she made at a Turning Point USA conference back in October. And what she said went viral all over Christian Twitter for all the wrong reasons. Specifically, she made unhinged and hyperbolic comments about pornography, and I don't think anybody on the left is going to agree with what she had to say, but what she said isn't necessarily that different from what other fundamentalist evangelicals say about porn. The problem, however, is that they didn't think that she was the right messenger to say what she said. So here's what she said, and these comments, by the way, are what led to accusations of feminism from those on the right. But without further ado, here's the feminist rhetoric that you're going to hear.
Porn has weakened men. Porn objectifies women and children. It commercializes sex, which is a gift from God for a married couple between one man and one woman, and it glorifies violence. It creates addiction and shame. It destroys marriages. It ruins your perception of other people. It is the legal loophole for sex trafficking. It is evil in every way, and it will destroy your life. And this is what I would want to say to men, and I hope that you hear it from strong men in your life, that men, we need you. And we need your masculinity, and we need your strength, and we need your boldness, and we need your courage, and we need those things to be harnessed for good. We need really strong men, and porn makes you weak.
So you kind of see the problem, right? The men who are hyperfixating on masculinity aren't going to take kindly to a woman calling them weak for any reason whatsoever, even if they agree with her on the merits of the argument. Now, nobody should agree with her on the merits of her argument because what she's saying is nonsensical. She basically equates child abuse material with all other forms of pornography, when those are two very, very different things. One is a crime, rightfully so, and the other is not. And her conflating the two makes it seem like she's minimizing the harm caused by pedophilia. Now, I don't think that that's her intention. Nonetheless, it's how it came off. But if you can't see the difference between those two things, I seriously question both your morals and your judgment. With that being said, that wasn't the main contention with her comments on Christian Twitter. And when the Blaze TV shared that clip, they very quickly sounded off about why they found her comments so triggering. We don't need a woman telling us this. Men, we need you to do what we want. This person shared a meme which says, a woman should learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet. She must be quiet. And you see the Christian feminist running away. I don't take advice on how to be a man from a woman. When women start listening to me about how to endure birth pangs, I'll rethink my first statement. She's a woman and Jewish, so watch out for that subversion of the faith. Why isn't she lecturing women about OnlyFans? I don't really care what she has to say about men. Men can minister to us. She should be lecturing women. How is this just not feminist badgering in a conservative skin suit? Women who pastor and women who preach in the church are a disgrace and openly reflect opposition to the clear command of the Word of God. This is flagrant disobedience. Cool, get off the stage. Everything useful you would say has been and is being said better by men, and there is quite a lot of important things that need to be said that you would never touch. Okay, cool, then stop taking up male space by speaking at political events. Women, we need you to be quiet. We need you to be submissive. We need you to have a gentle spirit. We need you to be busy at home. We need you to be about the business of raising children because that is where your greatest source of sanctification lies. Women, we need you to abandon the stage and master the home. Be about your husband's mission. Be the helpmeet God made you to be. And that's just a small sample of some of the backlash that she received in just that thread. It was much more prevalent in other Christian conservative spaces, so much so that she actually felt compelled to address it in a video where she was nearly brought to tears by the pile-on that she received for those comments.
Sometimes things really do hurt your feelings, and sometimes things really weigh you down and they discourage your heart. And that's what I'm feeling this morning. Like I'm feeling the weight of discouragement. And there is a part of that speech which was clipped. It was posted on the Blaze's X account. And it was a great part of the speech to clip because I meant every word of it, where I'm saying, men, we need you. We need your strength. We need your masculinity. We need you to be present fathers and solid pastors, and you're better than porn, and porn weakens men. This was not a chiding. This was not even an admonition. This was an appeal. And what happened? You had a bunch of people who identify as Christians on the right who are always, always, always looking for me to say something publicly that they can pounce upon. And they were calling me a feminist because apparently I was, they said finger wagging or whatever. I had people that I consider friends, people that I consider colleagues, repeating this kind of thing. And all different kinds of just straight up lies. It's really disheartening. And these are people who identify as Christians, who I notice will only ever go after me for these things and not, for example, like Candace Owens. I'm not saying they should go after her for those things, but they really have their sights set on me. And really will take every opportunity, even the Jubilee debate, like you saw the Jubilee debate, to say, this is why women shouldn't be in the public sphere for any reason whatsoever.
I'll admit, I actually did feel a little bit bad for her, which I'm sure she wouldn't approve of since she frequently warns about the dangers of toxic empathy, but you can tell that she's really hurt by the fact that she was attacked for saying something that's not controversial when other conservatives, namely men, say it. But I think that part of the reason why she gets singled out more often compared to, say, Candace Owens is because they both have very different audiences. Candace Owens, like her, is a Christian, to my understanding, but she primarily focuses on conspiracy theories and pop culture, whereas Allie Beth Stuckey predominantly focuses on fundamentalist Christianity. So she cultivated a very different audience than Candace Owens. Stuckey attracted viewers who expect more traditional evangelical views, and when you deviate from that, they're going to lash out. That's what they came to see, and that's what they expect. Now, about a week later, she released a more comprehensive response video titled "My Feminist Speech Controversy, a Biblical Response." And I've got to say right off the bat, you already know that that's not going to go over too well, because the people that she's responding to fundamentally reject the idea that a woman can teach the Bible. Therefore, in their minds, they don't believe that she's qualified to produce a biblical response in the first place. She can listen to a man's biblical teaching, but she can't actually teach it herself, and that's the issue here. Nonetheless, she tries, and she scoffs at the notion that she'd ever be considered a feminist. So let's take a look.
It's okay for women to also say, hey, this is damaging. And we really appreciate you as a man and appreciate your strength. But this is not good. This is sapping you of your strength, actually. So this negative reaction was from a very niche segment of the online male right. The accusation that Allie Beth Stuckey, am a feminist, is laughable. It almost doesn't dignify a response. Those of you who know me, who have been listening to me, who have been reading me for any amount of time, you know how hard I go against the tenets of feminism, against the gender ideology that I think was born of feminism in many ways. I actually argue that in this speech, that the ideology of feminism led to the idea that a man can become a woman. How hard I go against abortion, how hard I go against every tenet of progressivism. So to say that I am a feminist who preaches to men really is just laughable. And it just goes to show that people will just lie. So just know that. People will just lie about you.
I have to say, it honestly feels like satire to see a woman defend herself from allegations of feminism in the year 2025. But I mean, this is modern day conservatism, right? I mean, it feels like a parody, but it's not. And there's this fundamental disconnect here between her and the people that she's responding to that called her a feminist. They don't think that it's her place as a woman to offer them any advice because they believe that she's inherently inferior to them. And since she explicitly rejects feminism, which just means equality, she tacitly gave them permission to reject everything that she says outright because she's a woman. So she conditioned them to view her as unequal herself. So she kind of is lying in the bed that she made for herself. And in their minds, simply asserting herself on a stage is itself a feminist act, because any woman that feels empowered to take on the role of an authoritative figure, which is reserved for men, is definitionally feminist in their view, which is why they told her basically to stay in her lane and talk about womanly stuff with the girls, clothing and cooking and cleaning, or whatever they think they should be talking about. Now, she addressed that criticism as well about her staying in her lane, and she was basically like, well, I do stay in my lane. Nonetheless, it's not going to appease them, but here's what she said.
The second one, that I shouldn't preach to men, that I should just focus on women. I mean, you guys know it's what I do. I mean, look at the covers of my books. Look at the color of them. Do those look like books that are trying to target a masculine audience? I have been writing to women, for women, talking to women, for women very intentionally since the very beginning. I started out speaking at sorority chapters. We had 6,700 women attend our second annual Share the Arrows, and it was a solid biblical conference just for women. And the clips that were circulating of Share the Arrows, the same crowd had the same criticisms that this is somehow feminism and this is somehow wrong. And so the goalposts seem to always move. When you're talking exclusively to women, women shouldn't be talking. When you're talking to men and women, women shouldn't be talking to a mixed crowd at all, even outside of church.
I mean, yeah, that's exactly what they want. Because again, this is how they interpret the teaching in the holy book that you're championing. Sure, you can find other passages that contradict that, but you're in a space that champions traditionalism. So it shouldn't be surprising to see people you associate with interpret the Bible in the most antiquated, regressive, ass-backwards way imaginable. But there's more.
Okay, so there's this weird criticism out there that by me being up at the Turning Point podium, which I've done many, many times over the past 8 years, that I took the place of a man, that should be a man's job and a man's job only. And there's this idea that this is a zero-sum game, that if I have a podcast, or if I'm asked to speak, or if I do the Jubilee debate, then that means that I am taking the place of some male counterpart. And if I am not asked to do those things, then these people would be invited. And that's just, it's not how it works. And even if you believe that men in general are more suited for the public sphere than women are, and in general, I would probably say that's true. Statistically, I would probably say that's true. That doesn't mean that all men are cut out for it and all women are not cut out for it. And there is this idea, I think, by a lot of these people who also criticized my Jubilee performance that, well, she's a woman, so she can't have done as good of a job as me, some man. Well, okay.
Okay, but they say shit like this because you keep reinforcing that idea. You just said men are statistically more suited for the public sphere than women, but based on what? What statistic proves this? How would you even objectively measure something like that? It is horseshit, and she knows it's horseshit, but she thinks that she'll be able to win them over by ceding certain points to them, but that's not going to bring them to your side. That's just not going to work. They're not looking to compromise with you. It is a zero-sum game where you have to shut the fuck up and accept the totality of their worldview uncritically. Otherwise, you're a man-hating feminist. They really are that petulant. I know it feels like an oversimplification, but that is how they think. But to her credit, she does eventually finally take off the kid gloves a bit and more sharply criticizes the people who attacked her, but in doing so, only managed to make things worse. And you're going to see why when you watch the clip.
This segment of the male right, again, a lot of them I don't actually think are believers, just profess to be believers. They are very crass. They're very sexually degenerate. In many ways, they will make a lot of sexual jokes. They're very degrading, very rude to women across the board. I'm not saying all. And guys, if you're listening to this, I'm going to tell you what I tell my female audience. So important for all of us on the internet. If it's not about you, it's not about you. But a lot of these people in this segment of the so-called right are just very rude and very crass, very degenerate, very depraved, and very, very calloused. A lot of the excuse making of extremely crass people from this segment of the right, a lot of these people will hail and honor people like Nick Fuentes, who of course is extremely haughty and reviles and is crass and is crude. and is brutal and is ruthless and boastful, all of these people, all of these characteristics that are listed in this segment. And so they will give approval to those who practice these things. And this description here in Romans 1 are describing people who have been given over to the depravity of their mind. They're actually put in the same category as people who are homosexual, who are practicing homosexuality. Well, just as you can't affirm homosexuality and affirm LGBTQ ideology in the hopes that you're going to win people over to Christ, you're also not going to affirm slander and crassness and crudeness and brutality and win people over to the cross of Christ. It's just not going to work.
I love how gay people are catching strays. Also, she can say, fellas, if you behave in this way, you're acting like homosexuals. Right, because comparing them to homosexuals is definitely going to go over well with a segment of the population who melted down over a woman daring to call them weak. Allie, what you don't understand is that that's how they view you. They think that you're comparable to homosexuals because you're violating gender norms to teach the Bible in the same way that LGBTQ plus people violate gender norms just by being themselves. And again, at the end of the day, the people that she's pandering to just don't believe it's acceptable ever for a woman to address men in this way. It's not your place as a woman in their minds to call them degenerates. So it kind of feels like this is her birthing person moment where, you know, she can't take the criticism and she's kind of making it worse by lashing out. But, you know, she's not the only conservative pick-me to get a reality check about the people that she's aligned herself with, because after months and months of cozying up to right-wingers, trans influencer Brianna Wu published a mea culpa on Twitter on November 1st, where she announced that her attempt to get conservatives to see trans people as humans has completely and utterly failed. And that's not too surprising. Nonetheless, here's what she says, quote, "Trans sisters, I'm pretty sure I was wrong. I am sorry. I genuinely thought that as a trans woman, if I ceded some points with a gender critical crowd, we could have a healthier conversation and arrive at a better public policy. The problem is they are getting crazier and more extreme. If you admit trans women don't belong in women's sports, they agree, but call you a man the whole time. If you admit, I understand I am a biological man, but this is how I want to live my life, and talking about me like this is degrading, they scream about free speech. If you admit that hurtful language is part of free speech, but you don't have to associate with people that degrade you, they act like the victim and call you a man and then say you should be thrown in an insane asylum. It's like this on everything. They are incapable of looking for a middle ground on bathrooms. They want maximalist policies on everything. They throw a fully transitioned, fully passing trans woman in male prison gen pop and laugh as she got AIDS from being raped. I want a middle ground on so many of these policies, but the fundamental problem is they do not. They enjoy degrading us. It's fun for them. So sisters, I genuinely don't know what to do. I think many of our most extreme ideas are bad, but theirs are worse. So if I had to pick, I choose us. I wish there were a political vehicle for compromise and medical safeguarding, but that just simply does not exist. So first, I just want to say credit where it's due. I know it's very difficult to admit that you're wrong, so her saying this is actually very commendable. Hopefully one day she'll apologize for all of the anti-Palestinian bigotry and genocide apologia as well, but baby steps, right? Now, even though it's objectively good to see her finally take the correct stance after legitimizing right-wing talking points about trans people for so long, I can't help but respond by saying, no fucking shit. Like, what did you expect? I'm not trying to be a dick here, but did you expect this to end any differently? See, there's this idea that you can reason with conservatives by ceding ground to them or fluffing their egos, but it doesn't work that way. Their brains don't have the capability to connect dots in the way that other people's brains can. They're not going to think, hey, this trans person is super reasonable. Maybe not all trans people are bad. Maybe my views about trans people, more broadly speaking, are misguided. That's not what they're going to do. They're going to instead just view your olive branch as validation that they were right to hate trans people all along, because even a trans person is saying, yep, they're pretty crazy, right? And you're still going to go into the fucking blender. Either way, like maybe they'll put you in last, but you're going in with the rest of the LGBTQ plus people that they hate. They will only ever see you as a useful idiot and never as an equal human being. And trying to reason with them by ceding ground does nothing but fuels the fires of their hate. But Brianna Wu, this is not the only person from the LGBTQ plus community to get this harsh reality check, because self-proclaimed America First Patriot podcaster ChrisOnTheRight responded with shock to all of the gay bashing he saw towards two gay dads going skin-to-skin contact with their newborn baby, saying, "As a gay man, I hope to have a husband and children one day. I intend to raise them as God-fearing Christians, responsible citizens, and believers in America First values. Some people within my political coalition take issue with that. I don't care." Now, if you had to guess, how well do you think that this went over with his conservative pals? Not too well, as Dave Rubin could have told him. They responded by gay bashing him instead, saying, "God-fearing Christians do not practice sodomy," and this person ratioed him. Supposed ex-gay Milo Yiannopoulos says, "Absolutely disgusting. Leave children out of your self-abuse rituals. God does not delight in wickedness and perversion. You cannot be an openly gay Christian living and proudly identifying with your sin. Christ did not die for your sin so you can continue to take it up the butt from another sodomite and purchase babies to play house." Damn, this person is very, very blunt. "God willing, surrogacy will be banned before you have the chance to do such a wicked thing. You're clearly not God-fearing. The chances of two men raising a child as a God-fearing Christian are close to zero. They might become a Christian, but in spite of how you've raised them, not because of it. Repent." Now, of course, there's more. There's always more. But as you might have guessed, his conservative peers didn't take his tweet too well. And much like Allie Beth Stuckey and Brianna Wu, he's also learning in real time that they will never, ever view him as an equal, regardless of how hard he tries to LARP as a fundamentalist MAGA tryhard. They simply do not fucking like you. Take the hint. My advice to all of these people would be to just have some self-respect once and for all, and stop trying to win over people that think they're better than you. You don't need affirmation from brain-dead conservative dipshits, and if you think you do, maybe you are as pathetic as they say you are.
Ideas. In recovery mode, my brain ideas. In recovery mode, my brain ideas.